What if the unknown never changed? Look at the world today. Different religions, different cultures, different spiritual traditions. Each carries its own understanding of God, the sacred consciousness, and what may exist beyond ordinary human perception. And within those traditions, there can be profound certainty. This is what is true. Yet these cannot all be identical descriptions of what is there. So what if we have been asking the wrong question? Instead of asking, whose truth is true? What happens if we ask something much larger? What if there is one vast reality, but none of us experiences it without a human lens? What if humanity has sometimes mistaken different interpretations of the unknown for different unknowns? Every moment, an extraordinary amount of information reaches the human system, far more than we could ever consciously experience. Somehow, from all of that information, a world emerges that makes sense to us. The mind selects, organizes, connects, recognizes, gives meaning. Because to consciously experience something, it cannot remain entirely unformed. It has to become understandable. What was encountered might become a sensation, a presence, perhaps a voice, a being, an intelligence, a message, or something we understand as spiritual. Something unknown has begun becoming something known. And this is where it gets interesting. The mind does not meet that unknown with an empty canvas. Already present are language, memory, imagery, beliefs, concepts, expectations and ideas about what can exist. Some come from our own lives, others were here long before we were, our culture, our religion, our spiritual traditions, our science, the stories we inherited, even the boundaries our particular time in history places around what is considered possible. Together, these form something like a perceptual template, not necessarily something that creates what was encountered, something that helps configure what was encountered into a form the human mind can recognize. And that distinction changes everything, because the unknown itself may remain unknown. Yet once we try to recognize it, remember it, describe it, or communicate it, we have already begun translating it. The experience may be real. Something may genuinely have been encountered. But the moment we say, "This is what it was," we have moved from experience into interpretation. Now look across history. Ancient Egypt had Ra, Isis, and Osiris. Ancient Greece had Zeus, Athena, and Apollo. Hindu traditions describe deities, devas, and different realms of existence. Christianity brought God, Christ, angels, saints, and demons. Islam brought Allah, prophets, angels, jinn, and the unseen. Across other cultures came ancestral beings, spirits, sacred presences, visions, and creation traditions. These were not merely names. They belonged to entire ways of understanding reality. Then centuries passed. The language changed. Spiritualism spread through the Western world during the 19th century. Theosophy brought masters and mahatmas. Later came ascended masters. By the middle of the 20th century, Western culture was increasingly encountering accounts of extraterrestrial intelligence. Then came Pleiadians, Arcturians, higher dimensions, multidimensional consciousness. Just look at that progression. The names changed, the explanations changed. Taken completely literally, something rather extraordinary appears to have happened. The unseen world seems to have repeatedly changed its identity alongside the civilization encountering it. But what if it wasn't the unknown that kept changing? What if the available human language for understanding it changed? Someone in ancient Egypt did not have the concept of an Arcturian. Someone thousands of years ago did not inhabit today's language of extraterrestrial civilizations, frequencies, or multidimensional consciousness. And we do not inhabit the symbolic world of ancient Egypt. Each period in history gave the human mind different concepts through which something unfamiliar could become familiar enough to recognize. Which raises an extraordinary possibility. Perhaps humanity has not always been encountering different unknowns. Perhaps humanity has sometimes been giving different forms to what it could not otherwise understand. That doesn't prove every experience came from the same source. It doesn't tell us what ultimately exists. But it does change the question. Because even today, people reporting experiences beyond ordinary awareness can return with profoundly different explanations. One person encounters what they understand as a spirit. Someone else recognizes an angel. Another experiences a guide. Elsewhere, the same broad category of extraordinary experience may be understood as extraterrestrial intelligence, multidimensional consciousness, or consciousness itself. So which part belongs to the encounter, and which part belongs to the human being making sense of it? Where does perception end and interpretation begin? Now take that question all the way back. Before organized religion, before doctrine, before generations of inherited explanation. Imagine simply an experience. Something was seen, heard, felt, known. Something happened outside the ordinary boundaries of awareness. There may initially have been no language for it at all. But if that experience was going to be remembered, described, shared, then something beyond words eventually had to become words. The unfamiliar had to become recognizable, and it had to become recognizable through a human being, through the language available at the time, through existing concepts, through memory, through culture, through everything that person already understood reality to be. Then another extraordinary process could begin. An experience received a name. That name became an explanation. The explanation was shared. Over time, it could become a teaching. Teachings could become traditions. Traditions could become inheritance. Until eventually, the interpretation of yesterday became part of the perceptual template of tomorrow. Now, the next person encountering something unusual was no longer meeting it without context. There were already stories, already names, already images, already possibilities. The map was there before the next encounter occurred. And suddenly, the relationship between experience and interpretation becomes far more profound. The map may not simply explain an experience after it happens. The map may help determine how the next experience is recognized when it happens. An encounter becomes an interpretation. Interpretation enters culture. Culture shapes the template. Then that template meets the next encounter. Across generations, what began as one person's attempt to understand something can become another person's way of perceiving it. And this didn't end thousands of years ago. It didn't end with religion. It didn't end with spiritualism. It didn't end with New Age spirituality. It is happening in the world we are standing inside now. We can look backwards and see the fingerprints of another age almost immediately. Ancient Egyptian cosmology looks ancient Egyptian to us. Greek cosmology looks Greek. The spiritual language of the 19th century carries the 19th century within it. We recognize those frameworks because we are standing outside them. But the people living within them weren't. And neither are we. We are standing inside our own map. So imagine someone 500 years from now looking back at us. What might they see immediately that we cannot see at all? Would they recognize the fingerprints of our time in our language of energy, frequency, dimensions? extraterrestrial intelligence, and multidimensional consciousness. Ideas that feel completely self-evident to us may one day look as culturally situated as the explanations we now recognize in those who came before us. And that leads to one of the most uncomfortable possibilities in this entire question. We may be very good at recognizing other people's templates while remaining almost completely inside our own. None of this requires us to dismiss extraordinary experience. Quite the opposite. It allows us to take the experience seriously without automatically treating our explanation of it as final. Those are two different things. What happened and what we decided had happened. From a coherent field perspective, another possibility opens. A wave does not have to travel somewhere else to find the ocean. It was never outside it. Yet no wave occupies every position within that ocean. Each encounters the whole from where it is. The ocean can be one, while every encounter with it remains situated. Perhaps expanded perception can be held in a similar way. Awareness may not always be reaching somewhere else. It may sometimes be opening to more of what we were already within. But whatever enters conscious awareness still becomes experience through us, through perception, memory, language, history. The nervous system, the personal template, the collective template. One reality, many positions within it. Many human ways of making sense of what is encountered. Suddenly, difference doesn't necessarily require us to choose between only two possibilities. Everyone is describing exactly what exists. Or someone must be imagining it. There is another possibility. The encounter and the interpretation may not be the same thing. And perhaps that is where we have confused ourselves for thousands of years. We gave the mystery a name, then forgot that we were the ones who named it. That does not make the mystery less real. It simply leaves room for the possibility that reality may be larger than any language we have used to contain it. The gods changed. The beings changed. The cosmologies changed. The dimensions changed. Our language changed. Yet across cultures and across thousands of years, human beings continued reporting encounters with something beyond ordinary perception. Maybe the extraordinary part isn't only how different the explanations have been. Maybe it is how persistent the encounter has been, and perhaps the deepest mistake was never believing there was something beyond what we ordinarily perceive. It may have been something far subtler, mistaking the name we gave the unknown for the unknown itself. We look backwards and see humanity continually redrawing the map. The difficult part is realizing we may be drawing one now, so perhaps we are not the generation that finally found the ultimate description. Perhaps we are another generation standing before something vast, doing what human beings have always done, trying to make the incomprehensible comprehensible, trying to give language to what came before language, trying to make the unknown known. And if every age before us interpreted the mystery through the understanding available to it, there is one question we cannot easily escape. What if the unknown never changed? What if the map did?